with other delegates.
Did the fisheries and did the forestry get on the agenda?
No, they were not on the formal agenda, but I certainly made them.
While O'Malley was in Cyprus last week, the Northwest Atlantic Fisheries Organization was at the same time thrashing out international fishery quotas in Dartmouth. A $1.50 return fare across the bridge from his own Halifax riding. But the Deputy Speaker says he made diplomatic progress for the Canadian cause by supporting Cypriot opposition to the 1974 Turkish invasion of the island.
They want our support, just as I want their support.
O'Malley concedes that his constituents may not fully understand the valuable role that such conferences hold for Nova Scotia.
The Deputy Speaker says that the delegates to the Cyprus conference work from 8 in the morning until 10 each evening for 9 days on issues he says may soon be before the United Nations. Steve?
Thank you, Rick. ATV's senior correspondent, Rick Grant, tonight. Well, it looks like the Via Atlantic is in trouble again. Cynthia Patterson of Rural Dignity says a senior Via Rail manager has informed her of planned cuts, which include the Atlantic. A Via spokesman will not confirm these reports. Rural Dignity wants to make the train an election issue. Premier Frank McKenna has just been named Economic Developer of the Year by the Economic Developers Association of Canada. The Preem's been recognized by the institution for setting up new strategies and programs to improve the NB economy. This association was formed back in 1968 to enhance industrial and economic development through education and information exchange. And to that end, the McKenna government has just announced a new program that encourages people to invest in small businesses in their community. ATV's Laverne Stewart standing by live in Fredericton with details tonight. Laverne, what's all this about?
Well, Steve, it's called the Community Development Bond Program, and anyone with $100 can invest in small businesses in New Brunswick looking to expand or get off the ground. Now, the province says this is virtual risk-free investment because they're guaranteeing the principal on the bond money. Mark Wheeler employs 11 workers at his small factory where they make everything from duffel bags to wallets. He's looking to expand. Today's announcement comes as a welcome surprise. They will guarantee the principal on those bonds. What do you think of that?
I think to somebody who's got some money to invest, I think you can ask for a better deal.
Would you want people to invest in your company?
Well, I would. Yeah, I would. I mean, this is caused a bit by surprise, so we would have to have the plan ready, or what we're going to do with it. But to me, it sounds very interesting, and that's something I'm going to take advantage of, I think.
Mark wants to double his workforce to about 25 employees. Creating more jobs in the province is one of the reasons the government came up with the Small Business Investment Plan in the first place. Let's just say that you got involved in this community development bond program that the government announced today, and you did have investors and they invested in your business, and you expanded to those 25 employees. What would it look like here?
I think we'll probably tear this wall down and go next door for starters, actually. There's not really enough space. We've already put in a floor here, and there have to be more machines. There'll be twice the machines.
If this investment program works the way the government says it will, Mark will be able to make his expansions and hire more workers in 2 years instead of the 5 to 10 years he thought it would take. The government is hopeful this program will catch on, because having thriving businesses in areas which are now stagnating will mean that families that live in those communities won't have to go to urban centers to look for work. The government says this is low-risk, low-cost investment, affordable to most people in New Brunswick. Now, Steve, the whole success of this program hinges on New Brunswickers investing in their communities and local small businesses in those towns and villages across this province.
Be interesting to see what happens with it. Thanks, Laverne. ATV's Laverne Stewart, live in Fredericton tonight. Hard times in the construction industry have taken their toll on a well-known former St. John developer. An Ontario court has declared Pat Rocca personally bankrupt. The former developer of such projects as Market Square in St. John now lives in the Toronto suburb of Burlington. The court has found that 4 inactive Rocca companies owe more than $9 million, none of which has been paid. Rocca's properties have been placed in trusteeship, and court costs are to be paid from Rocca's own estate. 9 provinces in both territories have just announced a compensation package for people who contracted AIDS from contaminated blood. It's a $130 million package that involves all the provinces and territories except Nova Scotia, which already has its own program. In exchange for an agreement not to sue, up to 1,000 people across Canada can draw payments of $30,000 a year for life. There is also money for surviving spouses and dependent children. Nova Scotia Premier John Savage now confirms a delay in the official opening of the new Halifax Infirmary Hospital. The opening will be delayed from late 1995 to sometime early 1996. But there's at least a little good news in all of this.
The good news is that we're well under budget and that it looks promising.
If you're under budget, what's the reason for the delay?
Well, there are probably other reasons than time involved in budgeting, and the fact that it's under budget is extremely good news.
The Premier expects to get more details himself on the cause of the delay, first reported here last night. Well, Moncton Hospital is still wrestling with budget overruns, desperately trying to find ways to cut costs. The hospital board has been told expenses for this fiscal year may run more than $1.5 million over budget estimates, despite efforts to streamline operations. Despite the cost overruns, the board has decided to start a new program. The Addiction Services branch will begin treating compulsive gamblers at Moncton Hospital. The St. John Area School District has been forced to cut at least 18 full-time teaching jobs over the next 3 years. District 6, encompassing schools in Quispam, Rossay, all the way to Hampton, will reduce 12 positions at the end of the school year. Another 6 jobs go in 96. The superintendent says it's in critical condition. The board's finances?
The school board has hired more teachers than the number approved by the Department of Education, and therefore is responsible for the excess costs.
And that is?
Approximately $455,000.
The board says there won't be any layoffs. They're hoping most of the cuts will take place through attrition. A man's in custody tonight following a high-speed police chase on the Miramichi this afternoon. The Newcastle cops chased this sports car into a field in Chatham Head late this afternoon. The man driving the car was arrested after he finally tried to make his getaway on foot. And police say the driver of the car that left the highway and crashed near Charlottetown on Monday night, killing a 21-year-old island man, will face criminal charges. The Mounties say evidence indicates the car was involved in a hit-and-run accident a few minutes before it left the road and crashed around 1 o'clock Tuesday morning.
They weren't being chased, but they were trying to get away, that we feel, from this hit-and-run accident.
The driver will face a charge of leaving the scene of an accident, and the police say additional charges may be laid once blood test results are in. The person responsible for public safety in this country is in the Maritimes today, and he is defending the federal government's record on crime. ATV's Mike Cameron covering the story live in St. John tonight. I wonder, what did Doug Lewis have to say about all this today, Mike?
Well, today Lewis mentioned the new anti-stalking bill, gun control legislation, an overhaul of the parole system, and some of the other initiatives the government has taken. But, you know, when you become a victim of crime, all of those initiatives don't really add up to very much.
You know what scares me about that?
Dennis Cormier is one of the latest victims of crime in St. John. At 4 o'clock this morning, a stolen pickup truck plowed into his West Side convenience store. Charges are pending against the 2 occupants of the vehicle, but in the meantime, Cormier is left with over $30,000 in damages. He's not happy with the police presence in his part of town, but he doesn't lay all the blame on the police.
If a situation happened that you really needed an officer and he was available right around, I'm sure they're great, you know, sorry, but I think it's just too much work for them. They've got too much area to cover, and they just can't do it.
Police officers...
In another part of town, Doug Lewis spoke to a national conference of rank-and-file policemen. He says the government is getting tough on crime, and that the government has a good track record.
We've passed the laws to deal with the crime and try to prevent it. Now we've got to make that leap into more crime prevention, more community involvement, school involvement, churches, parents. Everybody's got to be involved in crime prevention.
But an organization representing crime victims says a lot more than that is needed.
We have to improve the way that we deliver, frankly, service in the criminal justice system, how we spend our dollars, so that police forces aren't part-time police forces because they haven't got the dollars to provide protection.
Dennis Cormier says ordinary people do not feel as safe as they used to, and criminals are getting wrist slappings.
I mean, if we need more jails or more accommodations for them, let's get them, you know. But
today, for this small businessman, the issue of public security struck very close to home.
And Mr. Cormier says the final bill for damages will be in the order of $35,000. and his insurance won't be covering everything. He found out the hard way today that he was underinsured for this kind of thing.
Well, he's left holding the bag then.
You bet.
Thanks, Mike. ATV's Mike Cameron live tonight in St. John. Still ahead on your ATV Evening News tonight. Liberal promises, but at what price? And later, some Hollywood history goes missing. But first to next, new developments in 2 unsolved maritime murders when we come back. Halifax police have now traced the last steps of the 17-year-old woman who was murdered last week and found on a Halifax golf course. ATV's Janice Landry is covering the investigation into the murder of Giselle Pelsman. She's joining us live in Halifax tonight. Janice?
Well, Steve, the last thing police knew for certain was that Pelsman got on a bus in the Fairview area of Halifax, but they now have witnesses who spotted her later that night. Giselle Pelsman's boyfriend took her to this bus stop in West End, Halifax last Wednesday night, where she boarded the number 2 bus at 9:50 p.m. That was the last definite sighting police had of Pelsman until now. A police source says the teenager was spotted at 1:30 in the morning at a Tim Hortons coffee shop in Fairview. The source says she was alone in the coffee shop, but it's not known whether anyone was waiting for her outside. A short time after someone saw Pelsman at the coffee shop, a second witness spotted her in this area hitchhiking near the Fairview Animal Hospital that you see behind me. Now, the animal hospital is only about a block and a half away from the coffee shop and very close to the golf course where her body was found. Authorities don't know if she got into a car, but a police source says while they're not ruling that out, it's not their main theory. Meanwhile, police say they're still baffled about what Pelsman did for 3.5 hours between the time she got on the bus and then was later seen at the coffee shop.
She may have visited a friend, and we're certainly interested in talking to anyone that may have spoke with her, seen her go into a home or an apartment, and that's what we're trying to narrow down, what happened during that time period.
Police also say their public plea to speak with passengers aboard the number 2 bus has resulted in some information, but no one has been able to tell police they definitely saw Pelsman get off at a particular stop. If you were on the number 2 bus that night, or if you were a customer at the Tim Hortons shop, and if you think you have any information that could help solve this case, please call Halifax Police, or you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously. Steve.
Thanks for the update tonight, Janice. ATV's Janice Landry live in Halifax. The Newcastle police have sent more evidence to the lab as they investigate the Florence Hersey murder. Her body was found in her downtown Newcastle apartment Friday night. Autopsy results confirm that Hersey was stabbed twice in the abdomen. Police have questioned a number of people again today. This morning, more evidence was sent to the ID section in Bathurst for further analysis. Elsewhere on the planet tonight, a hijacked Russian jet is on the ground at a darkened airport north of Oslo, Norway right now. Negotiators are talking by radio with the hijackers. Officials in the former Soviet Union say the 3 hijackers are Iranians. They have requested political asylum. Protesting farmers tied up traffic on several highways around Paris this morning. What a mess this was. They want the French government to reject a deal between the United States and the European community limiting subsidized farm exports. The deal critical to the passage of the GATT, the international trade deal. French officials have already warned they will oppose the agreement when EEC foreign ministers meet in Brussels, Belgium next week. And back in this country, damage is set at $500,000 in a fire at a recycling warehouse. Happened in Bowmanville, Ontario, east of Toronto. The blaze was fueled by the tires and the cardboard and gas stored inside the building. Now, talk about a lethal combination there. About 5,000 tires, tons of compressed cardboard, old trucks, buses, other junkers, diesel fuel and gasoline. Well, it went up instantly. The firefighters suffered minor injuries fighting the fire, cause of which is not known. And still ahead here tonight, filled with a forecast fit for fall, which is, after all, only a week away, so don't be mad at Phil. And first and next, we've got promises and promises and more promises, but at what price? Liberal planks and price tags are next. Now, Campaign 93, the Liberals laid it all on the line today. Chrétien and the team unveiling all of their planks, complete with price tags. Their programs range from child care to big money for research and development to job training for young people. Gretchen claims the big cuts to existing programs will make all of this possible. ATV's Jonathan Freed has our story from Ottawa.
Jean Chrétien and his team were beaming like proud parents today, the bundle in their hands, the Liberals' main election platform.
And I think that this plan is a realistic plan to create realistic hope.
The plan's called Creating Opportunity, and its main objective is to create jobs and overall economic growth.
We kickstart the economy, we create a better economic climate, there is growth, and people will spend their money through the expansions, and the private citizens feeling better. When you feel better, you spend.
Now, in order to make that happen, the Liberals have a 4-year plan. They're proposing more than $5 billion worth of new programs. Among other things, they want to invest big in research and development, create training programs for young people, and make it easier for small and medium-sized businesses to get bank loans and deal with government. But the Liberals say the major job creator will be their infrastructure program of building roads and bridges, an idea the Tories have already attacked.
Infrastructure for us means an investment in those projects which are going to increase Canada's productivity. These are not simple make-work projects. They are long-term investments.
The Liberals are also proposing a child care program, but only if the economy's grown by at least 3%. To pay for all this, the party's planned about $7 billion in cuts, the new military helicopters, and other defense cuts to be named later, cuts in the number of outside consultants the government uses, fewer direct grants to business, and staff cuts for ministers as well as at the Prime Minister's office. The Conservatives scoff at the whole thing.
The Liberal approach does not offer jobs. It does not. It's a short-term approach. It's the old solutions. It's been tried before, and quite frankly, it's at the root of a lot of the problems we have now.
But this economist is more optimistic.
The package is fiscally prudent in the sense that it's balanced. In fact, it's slightly more restraint than we currently have. That'll satisfy those who are worried about the spending sprees that the Liberals are noted for.
Now, underlying all of this is what the Liberals are calling fiscal responsibility. They say they'll get the deficit down to 3% of Canada's gross domestic product, but they won't give a precise dollar figure. And another thing they're being vague about, how they'll replace the GST. For now, all Chrétien will say is he'll find the money one way or another. In Ottawa, Jonathan Freed, ATV News.
For her part, federal NDP leader Audrey McLaughlin says there's nothing original about the Liberal platform. In fact, she accuses the Liberals of stealing ideas from her party.
Once again, as we know, the Liberals will do anything to get power. They present plans like the New Democratic Party, and then they govern like Conservatives.
McLaughlin spent the day in Montreal wrestling with popularity polls that have her running well back of the Liberals and the Tories. She will be in Halifax tonight. Maryland's dresses go missing shortly after Phil's forecast, which is next on the ATV Evening News. Mixed bag of weather around the region today. Some areas, I guess, were nice and hot, Phil, and others were kind of fallishly cool, shall we say.
That's right, Steve. The summit of summer temperatures today into interior New Brunswick into the low 30s, but with the wind coming off the water, for example, at St. John, along the Bay of Fundy, into the mid to high teens. So quite a contrast. Speaking of contrast, we'll go to the big picture. First of all, here we find this corridor cloud beginning to creep into the New England states. That divides the hot air from the cool air. And of course, we're on the hot side, as we mentioned, very, very warm across the Maritimes. But on the west side of this frontal zone, crossing into Ontario, Toronto right now, for example, is sitting at 12 degrees, so that's the change of air mass that's coming, and we'll notice that going through the day tomorrow. So today's weather map, we put the front through overnight tonight, a few scattered showers, and a cool ridge of high pressure coming in behind to bring us back to sunshine for tomorrow and Friday, and daytime highs in the mid to high teens. So quite a contrast, as we mentioned, and last night in Geraldton and northern Ontario, they dropped to -3, and I might say with this air mass coming over us, I expect we'll see some frost across the Maritimes for Friday morning, not tomorrow morning, Friday morning. Jet stream, cool pocket of air over the Rockies still with a bit of snow in the higher elevations, but where we are, it continues to ridge up over the Atlantic provinces. St. John's, Newfoundland at 22 today, and of course into the Maritimes, very, very hot.
but that'll all change once the front goes through over the next 24 hours. So the close-up imagery, lots of sunshine across the Maritimes, the exception being northern New Brunswick, a few scattered showers in the Madawaska area going through, and here we pick up the corridor clouds we talked about earlier, and that's what's coming through, bringing us a few showers. I don't expect a real washout, just a hit-and-miss variety with the showers going through and putting it into motion. There you can see it advancing in, advecting towards the Maritimes, and bringing us that change of air mass in somewhat cooler weather as well as we wrap up this week. And we do have one more week of summer to go. Fall arrives weekend tonight at 9:22. Steve, put that in your notebook. So for tonight, the showers coming down with a scattered variety moving across the area, and cool in New Brunswick, single digits in behind the cold front. Otherwise, across Nova Scotia and PEI, the mid-teens for overnight lows. And for the day tomorrow itself, the cloud cover will move out with a few showers out to sea, sunshine coming back, and look at these temperatures. Quite a contrast from today's temperatures. Mid to high teens, maybe around the 20-degree mark in Metro Halifax, but certainly a cooler day, but really just close to where we should be for this time of year. So let's take a look at the long-range outlook as we finish up the work week and go into the weekend itself. For Friday, I'll go with my 100% sunshine for the day, a cool 16 for a high. Saturday starting off sunny, some showers coming in from the west, moving out, sunshine coming back for Sunday, and staying cool. Well, I shouldn't say cool, seasonable temperatures. Steve, back to you.
Frost, you say.
Frost.
Well, before we go tonight, a couple of famous dresses have been swiped. These were worn by none other than Marilyn Monroe. One is the famous white dress, in fact, that she wore in the 7-Year Itch. Also swiped the gown worn in the 1962 singing of Happy Birthday to Jack Kennedy. Those dresses were swiped from this warehouse belonging to the executor of Maryland's estate. And that's our news for now. For my colleagues on both sides of our cameras, Steve Murphy, thank you and good night from the ATV News Team.
Boy Meets World Fridays this fall on ATV.
Okay, mister. Drop my son's underwear.